So we're on records now. Okay, so what I did was I just put a brief presentation together to try and clarify, in my mind, or my opinion at least, and from what I've managed to gather from the different sources of information, what is fact and what is people's opinion. I'm just trying to get hold of my thingy here. Just need to get okay, I think we're on it now. And I just wanted to clarify too, because there's this thing about lockdown and the definition of lockdown. So just to cover myself, I just thought I'd put a slide in to say exactly which regulations we're talking about, which is the movement of persons and goods, which is essentially, I suppose, an addendum to the level 4 regulations. And importantly, firstly, the requirement is that anybody who wants to move, there's all sorts of definitions and stuff about who can move, when lease agreements must be, etc., etc. But what is clear is that for people to be able to move, they need to obtain a permit and have a copy of the lease agreement with them. And I've gone back and got a copy of the regs here, where I've highlighted these particular pieces, and I just want to get it up on the right screen. I had it all set up, and of course everything's gone a little bit haywire. So what it specifically says here is that the person must obtain a permit, and fortunately the station commander of a police station can issue a permit, and the format of the permit is in the regs. And then it goes on to say that persons who are part of the household are going to be part of that permit, but that's the police's problem, in my opinion. But it does importantly say they must have in his or her possession the relevant lease agreement. So for a tenant to be able to move, which is obviously we'll need to advise them, is that they must have a permit, but they must also keep a copy of the lease agreement with them. And they talk about indicating the date of expiry of the old lease and date of commencement of the new lease. So I'm not sure exactly how they are going to enact that, but it is important that they have a copy of a lease, because there has been discussions about facts that lease agreements can be verbal, etc., etc. But I would think that given that, it's going to be a little bit dicey for people who want to say, yes, but I have a verbal lease, because the police's directions are obviously going to be that they need to have a copy of the lease agreement with them. Then the other thing I just want to clarify is which leases qualify. Now, the regulations specifically talk about the date that lease agreements were entered into. And in the Property Law Alliance video, which you may or may not have watched, which is shared on my Facebook page, they talk about the fact that when somebody starts negotiating a lease agreement, and it might be verbal, but in terms of these regulations, at least, they need to have a copy. So it's going to have to be reduced to writing, and about how to date that, so that you can go from the, sorry, my washing machine's also going. You can also go from the situation or the argument that negotiations start at a certain date, and so you can date them those dates. And I will put a copy to that Property Law Alliance video in here. So it's important that the date of the agreement can be, according to them at least, they advise, noted as the date on which the negotiations took place, and that date must be in lockdown. In terms of the permit, the form is attached to the regulations, and it needs to be printed and gone to the police station, and the SAP station commander or somebody duly authorized by him can do it. Now, I've had a lot of questions from people about, yeah, but my tenant does this, and their date was this, and blah, 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 blah. And the advice that I've given people is, instead of breaking your heads about it and trying to figure out the regulations, the simplest way, the simplest approach to take is to say, you can move if the SAP station commander and the police give you a permit and sign your permit. So go off to the police station, put your case to them, and as long as you have a permit from the SAP station commander, we're more than happy to arrange the necessary for you. So I think it's important for agents, therefore, to say, look, get a permit, send me a copy of the permit, and then we'll start making arrangements. So that's my thoughts on that. In terms of the in and outgoing inspections, I put together a number of options. I'm going to go through them despite the fact that things have changed slightly. The one option that has been mentioned along the line, which I must admit, I battled to get my head around, is the idea of tenants doing inspections. My concern there is, of course, the fact that they're not going to focus on the areas that we'd want them to focus on, which is going to make the inspection slightly dicey, especially when they want their deposit back in this particular time. But the options that are available there would be Red Rabbit, I know, is working on a solution. So if you use Red Rabbit, they are working on a solution. The other solutions that I've seen in the Australian groups is WhatsApp. The one that I would like, if people decide to go this route, which may or may not be necessary anymore, is to do something like a Zoom, which can be recorded. Because I think it's important to have something recorded. And if somebody's on the line with you with a Zoom, at least you can say, go left over there, or no, I want to see in that corner. No, further to the left, further to the left. So I think that would have been a possibility, or would be a possibility. The other thing I've done is I've also collected a list of people who do inspections that tell me they are certified in level 4. So I do have a list of people like that. It's mainly in the main centers. But if anybody wants any details, if you just tell me, if you will pop me an email and tell me what area you're in, this is another way. For example, if you have agents who are in the high risk group of the over 60s and things like that, or have babies or immune suppressed or something like that, and you're going to use a third-party inspector, I do have a list of people that have sent their contact details through to me and assured me that they have level 4 certificates. And then, of course, now it's just come out, and I've just found it now, and let me just get to it. There is a TPN video that's available on their YouTube channel, which has just come out, where Peter Menon has spoken to the head of disaster management, I think it is, in Port Elizabeth, and confirmed that agents can get a permit as an essential service. Specifically under business and financial services, or professional and financial services, and there's a specific reason for that. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of that, because you obviously need to make notes about that yourself, but I will share that this video as well now, so that you can clarify that. This, of course, makes, I mean, it's a game changer. So it makes life considerably easier. They seem certain about it, and so for that reason, I'm comfortable to say I did speak to people over the weekend and said to them to try and apply for these permits, and they did apply for the permits. And I said, be very clear when you apply for the permit. Now, Peter gives more information about the specific clauses that you have to apply under. But what I said is, because I believe, and I haven't done this, but I believe that when you go and you apply at SIPC for this permit, and I'll share the links as well in the rental leaders group, you need to say exactly what it's for. And I'd say specifically to say for the release of deposits and the associated in and outgoing inspections, because when you get the certificate, you'll see at the bottom it says that if you have made any false declaration, you could be prosecuted in terms of the state of disaster, of the Disaster Management Act. Now, nobody wants to get prosecuted in terms of the Disaster Management Act. So I think it's important to apply under the right category and to be very clear when you put in what you're getting it for. Then, so we've spoken about that because that's just changed now. I think the other thing is to make sure that give one's staff very clear directions about social distancing, 2 meters away from one another, for example, just to be safe, wearing a suitable mask, all that sort of thing. Another thing that I've had some discussions and some thought about is cleansing. Now, I think that it would only be responsible, especially where somebody's wanting to move into a property, to have a discussion with the landlord and say to the landlord, listen, given the fact that we're in a COVID situation, we can scrub this place down, but something like carpets, for example, supposedly can harbor the virus. And I think it would be responsible of landlords to say to them, look, not to open yourself up for any potential problems. We suggest that we do a total sanitization of the property that somebody's just moved out of before somebody moves into. The other thing there, of course, is that cleaning services that you're going to find available at the moment will only be really your sanitizing services that are permitted to work under level 4. So if they're going to go in and do a deep clean or a clean as well, they may as well do a sanitization. I think it's only responsible, or it would just be, it just makes sense for the landlord to do that. Now, I've also had a number of questions from people on all sorts of places saying, but what about where lease agreement has been cancelled? If they could find alternative accommodation, are they allowed to move? What the lease agreements that are dated prior to the 30th of April, of course, are what we're looking at. And this is something that I'll cover just now again, this definition of lockdown. I thought we're still in lockdown. But in terms of the specific regulation, there's a specific period that is defined as lockdown. I think it's, to be honest, I think it's been defined in error, but the reality is it has been defined in black and white. So we need to look at that lockdown in terms of the regulations where they refer to lockdown. The only definition, and I've clarified this with the property law lines, the only definition of this at this point of lockdown is the level 4 regulations that were gazetted on the 29th or the 30th of April. And I have a copy here, and this is the only place where lockdown has specifically, okay, so if we're talking about, these are the regulations, this number over here, 43293, is about the movement of people. But if you go and look at the state of disaster level 4 regulations, which came out, sorry, the 29th of April, and this is the number of it. You'll notice that all of the lawyers are talking about the specific period of 23:59 hours on the 26th of March until 23:59 on the 30th of April. And the move-in regulations say lease agreements that were entered into during or prior to. And these are the dates that they're talking about. I was a bit confused about this initially, so I went to the property law alliance and clarified it. And the reason for this is that there is no definitions in this particular part, the one about the movements. There's no definitions there, but it refers to this other one over here, this 43258. And we go back, sorry to get a bit technical here. It goes back to here. So I have had questions from people about, oh, what if I change the date on the agreement, et cetera, et cetera. I've told them I can't answer that for them, except to say that I believe it may be illegal. And that's as much as what I'm going to comment on that. But this is where, because this has been a confusion for people. So if somebody enters into a lease agreement today, even though we're between the 7th of May to the 7th of June, if somebody enters into an agreement today, we go, and the agreement is dated today. So the negotiations didn't start way back in April. Then technically in terms of the black and white, they will probably, well they don't qualify. However, once again, I say to all these people that are possibly pestering agents or all the queries they're getting, say to them, look, the bottom line of this is quite simple. You need a permit. If you have a permit from SAPS by the station commander, then I'm allowed to assist you to move. So go get your permit, send me a copy, and I think that's also safe for agents to keep a copy on file in any case if there's any problems. So maybe keep a copy of that when the agent is going out to do their work or to do their inspection. Just say to them, go to SAPS, take a copy or take a photo of the permit, send it to me, And then at least I know that you're going to, that you are permitted, because in the end, I think when you go through a roadblock or something like that, and this is going to once again differ from area to area, the best thing to have is a permit that's signed off by the station commander. Then also, once again, people have asked about what people have lost their jobs, can't pay, etc., etc. Once again, you know, instead of us trying to make those judgment calls, I say the best thing to do is say to them, go to SAPS, take the documentation with you, and maybe send them a copy of the permit. And if SAPS will sign it and authorize the permit, then I think we're covered, or agents are covered, to be able to facilitate the move in whichever way, shape, or form. So the protocol that I suggest is tell the tenants to get a permit and send it to you so that you can keep it on file and also have it with you when, or this agent here, when they go out and do the inspections. One of the issues here is complexes, because we all know that a lot of the complexes, the trustees seem to think that they sit on the left-hand side of whoever runs the world. So I think there's going to be issues in terms of people moving in and stuff like that, because not everybody's up to date. Not everybody understands that agents will now be able to get a permit, etc., etc. So I say, get a copy of the moving company's permit. The tenant's going to need that in any case. So ask them to send a copy of that to you. Use only cleaning or sanitizing companies with a permit and get them to send you a copy of that. Make sure the property is sanitized before anyone moves in. Decide on the company policy re-inspections. Now, this was done before. We now know that, or according to TPN at least, there's directions that a company will be able to get a permit. And I then say, for complexes, to avoid any issues, your agents having any issues, your tenants having any issues, those sorts of things, I suggest that the best way to work is to contact the complex, send them all the copies of the permits, let them know that everything has been authorized, and let them know that the people are coming and when the people are going to be coming. So that sort of flight my story as 8. Any thoughts?
Sean, do all tenants moving require a permit?
Say again, sorry?
Do all tenants moving require a permit? If you look at the regs, it says that it's specific on district. That's the lowest level it goes to, or district. So it's if you look at that, if you're moving into district, does it mean they don't need?
Dexter, I have watched just about every video that's out, okay? And local falls under districts, okay? And let me just see exactly what it says here. It talks about facilitate within and across.
Okay. No,
to me, the other important thing here is also that we have to, I mean, we've all seen the horror stories about parents being locked in police vans because babies run on beaches and people grab them and stuff like that. I think the best thing to have when you get to a police roadblock is a permit. So I'm saying to agents, the agent says, this is my suggestion. I go into boss mode so easily, sorry. I'm saying to people, let the office get I think it's called a certificate, essential services certificate. Get copies of all these permits, keep them with you, keep them on file should you end up with a problem, because the severity of a state of disaster breach is just not worthwhile contemplating. And just make sure you have all of that through it, because when you go through a roadblock, you know okay, and I can tell you, somebody did tell me, they're not in the call and they'll stay anonymous, that they are a level 4 service provider, and they gave their domestic person who cleans their house a permit. This is why names won't be. And evidently when this lady goes through, she just shows her permit and the police say, whoopie-doo, off you go. They don't ask any further questions. So this is a CYA thing. Cover your cute little achterwereld.
Cool.
Anything else? Have I elucidated anybody about anything? I hope I haven't wasted your time.
No.
No, I think from our side, the interesting thing is the situation now where you have inquiries coming through, and you've given clarity on the concept of the dating of the lease agreements. That's going to be the one that catches us a little bit. And the temptation is to keep going and dawn forward anyway, and hope that. But then that's a call you have to make and weigh in terms of compliance. You know,
Keith, I can tell you, I've had on every single device or way that people can contact me. You know, I have a 67-and-a-half-year-old lady who's 5'4", and she's moving 27.6 kilometers, and blah 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 blah. And initially, I was working through those and going back to this, and I thought, but look, none of this matters, because my opinion doesn't matter, your opinion doesn't matter, nobody's opinion matters. If they get a permit from SAPS and they've got that permit, then as far as I'm concerned, from an agency perspective, you don't have to worry about the details. I would say they got a permit, here's a copy of the permit. That's why I'm saying get them to send you a copy, keep it on file. If there's any issue, you know, because look, there's going to be stories out there about, oh no, but you know, in, I don't know, some other town, you can get a permit for 25 Rand around the corner. Well, how can we verify all of these things? I say get a copy, keep it on file, and then I believe you've done your job and can prove that you've done your job. That's my thought. Dexter, what's your thoughts?
No, I agree 100%. I'll just share this with you. You know, some of our tenants have tried to get permits since this thing has come out on the weekend. And I think I've been to 2 or 3 police stations, and the guys that are there know absolutely nothing about this, and have said, listen, we don't know about it, we can't help you.
Yeah.
Come back next week when the station commander returns. So hopefully all of that will filter down quite quickly.
Look, I mean, I can understand. Look, I say we, okay, I'm using the royal we here. I don't actually operate anymore, just that you all know. We know that we can sit with 10 of our agents and say the same thing, and they all get we transmit exactly the same message, and you send them a questionnaire afterwards, and you'll have 10 different things. So I can just imagine for the police it's going to be a problem, because it says the station commander, by the way, or somebody that's duly authorized by them. So that's one of the reasons that the letter that I sent last week to the members of the Rental Leaders Focus Group, and I did that very early on Friday because I knew people were going to be inundated. And sometimes it helps just to get a message out to people. And in there I said, we don't know the specifics at this point in time. Please just hold off, because I know people were getting calls on Thursday about people wanting to move on Friday already. And exactly what has happened. I'm hoping, for example, that this lockdown period that I was talking about, the feeling from the lawyers' side seems to be that they think that this is an error and should actually, you know, include up to. But the point, but the reality is this is what it is. So this is the dates. But whether a policeman is actually going to figure this out and actually look at the dates on the lease agreements or not is, of course, questionable. So that's why I say to the people, look, there's only one lot of people that can give you that permit. You got a permit, is fine with me, but you need that permit first. So go off to your local police station. Some of them might go with a lease agreement dated today and get a permit. And it doesn't, you know, as long as they've got a permit, as far as I'm concerned, I would be comfortable assisting them, because I have a piece of paper that if the police say something to me, I say, yeah, here's the permit.
And sure, that permit is obtainable, or should be obtained from the police station, from the area or district that you're moving from. I saw that somewhere.
Dexter, good question. Let me just have a look. That's why I keep these things handy. I love them in PDFs because you can search. Okay, sorry, I'm in the wrong regs here. Let me just go back here quickly. From the station commander of a police station or a person. Look, technically this actually says to travel across provincial, metropolitan, or blah, blah, you need a permit. And this is maybe, sorry, what you were asking me earlier, and I maybe misunderstood or jumped somewhere else. I think it's going to be safer to get a permit. Because as you say, police don't always get the right messages, but here it did talk about, you see, the regulations, you know, Mama Nkosi Dlamini Zuma was talking about the zols and the licking of the papers. I think she might have been licking her papers when she did this, because here it says, this is specifically change of residence, and it talks about within and out, and then over here it doesn't talk about within. So I think there's a bit of a discrepancy here, but it doesn't actually say here. I think logic, if we think about this logically, Dexter, if I'm moving from here, then surely it's closer for me to go to the police station here. So I would say go to the station commander, the place you're going to move from.
So just anecdotally, that's what we tried, or some of the tenants tried, but quite a few police stations are actually closed because of COVID. So,
ooh. Okay, well then maybe let's say to them, go to your closest police station. The reality is, I don't know if the police are going to check these dates, and you're going to have some police stations and other police stations working differently.
okay, that's been useful, Sean.
Okay, I'll pop all of these links into, well, I can either pop it into the chat here, or it's probably easier for me just to pop them into the group.
Yeah. And then will you, that link of the TPN release that just came through, I mean, that's a game-changing scenario, the level 4 certificate, essential services.
Yes.
Can you include that?
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to include that as number 1. Actually, I'll do it this way. Let me include that in the group now. Okay, because I don't like putting too much stuff in the group, because it gets irritating, because I know everybody's in 101 different groups. I'll do that. I'll put that one in there. If you guys need any of these other things, just let me know. In the end, because of that, I didn't worry too much about protocols, because I was going to do a protocol that I was going to send out. But then when I saw that, I thought to myself, but wait, all we need now is company registers. You can give your agents permits yourself. So I'm assuming if you're a one-man band, you give yourself a permit as well, because there's nobody else to do it. I know what I can tell you anecdotally is that going to the police station asking them for a permit doesn't work for an agent, or at least it doesn't work in Belleville. It might work somewhere else, but it doesn't work in Belleville. So I'll share that now in the group.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Everybody happy? Anything else, you can always reply to any of my messages on there and just pop me a question, and I'll generally just send you a voice note back, because my eyes are like this already. And my thumbs are far too fat. Okay, have a good day.
Thanks,
and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys. Cheers, everyone.
Bye, guys. Cheers.